Welcome to another episode of JAX TV. I'm here at JAX 2015 with Adrian Colyer. Hi, Adrian.
Hi, Sebastian.
Adrian, you just did a keynote right here, our opening keynote, The Prepared Mind. You told us a little bit on how you are working, how you're doing research and what you are interested in. Maybe you give us a brief overview on how you do research.
Yeah, so the story behind the approach I use, which is fundamentally to look at the fundamentals through research papers and also the frontiers of where things are going. I stumbled into this when I started working in London, which for me is a 1-hour commute on the train in each direction. And there were several other commuters there sort of reading their morning papers, the Times, the Telegraph, the FT, etc. And one morning I read a computer science paper instead, and I sort of thought that was a much better alternative paper to be reading in the morning. And so this has become a habit that's stuck. And so what I do is I read a paper typically in the morning on the way into London. I think about it in the back of my mind during the day, and then on the way home I write up my short notes and thoughts about it.
Okay, that's interesting. You are well known in the Java world as the former CTO of SpringSource, as the creator of Aspect-J, and now you're working for a venture capitalist. Your job is kind of being a trend scout, or how would you describe your role?
Yeah, so I'm a venture partner with Axel Partners based out of London. And yeah, I have a very fun job. So I look all around Europe, looking at the exciting technology and teams and young companies, seeing what's sort of interesting and looks promising. And then I work with our partners to help guide investments and do due diligence. And then I advise and mentor some of the companies that we do invest in. So It's a very rewarding mix.
Cool. Really interesting. But here's the question from my side. In the past, you've been really busy with, let's say, more the application development side. In this keynote, you showed us many, many examples of how to organize data, how to partition data, how to define networks, and more that kind of infrastructure-like stuff. Why do you think that application developers should care for these things as well?
Yeah, great questions. I mean, obviously that's kind of happened in two ways. One through my personal career, as you say, starting thinking about very focused on a language and its compiler and sort of programming sort of in the small, but then gradually, through the CTO roles and the set of the portfolio of technologies you're responsible for as that grows, you have to pick up expertise in more and more areas. Yeah. But I think maybe more fundamentally, really every programmer these days is becoming a distributed systems programmer. And so that set of issues that once maybe you could put to one side and say, well, I just got a web tier talking to a database, life is no longer that simple. And the set of issues you now have to address means that some awareness of distributed data and the way it works and the whole kind of distributed systems theory is really valuable to the modern programmer.
But given the fact that, let's say, being an application developer, I know my platform, I'm an expert or I'm a domain expert in my area, and now I should care for a huge, complex environment. How the hell should I be able to manage that kind of complexity or to even understand what's going on?
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it's a daunting task. One of the things I recently did actually was look back and think sort of, here's the Hello World program, and we all know that and how small and simple it is. Yeah. And now think about kind of Hello Service, the smallest meaningful service you can put in production that essentially gives you a greeting and everything you need to think about in order to be able to do that. And it's a very, very long list when you do that. So there certainly are a huge number of concerns to be addressed. As I tried to touch on in the talk, I think one way of getting to grips with that is actually not to necessarily master the intimate detail of every technology, but to try and step back a little bit and think about some of those principles that apply across a variety of technologies. That will stand you in good stead. Okay. Certainly.
What do you consider being the key drivers for that kind of, let's say, transition?
Really, actually, for me, the key driver, what it really comes down to is the traditional enterprise looking and feeling, oh my goodness, I really need to figure out a way to go faster. Looking at the new companies, the new startups, the new innovations all around outside the organization and thinking, I've tried incremental things to try and get better. I've pushed and really I'm not getting the results I want. And what we've seen awareness of this going back a number of years, but in a number of companies this is it's been a pressure building, like I've got to do something to the point where now many of them are prepared to actually say, I'm going to try something a little more radical and I'm going to think about moving to some of these new architectures because if I don't do something, I'm really going to get radically left behind. And so seeing this pattern again and again and again in a number of industries.
So does this mean from your perspective, accelerating deployment cycles beats cost reduction?
Yes, absolutely. And I used to see this in my previous life at Pivotal, talking to many people about what they wanted from cloud deployments and platforms. And it's really interesting. At the infrastructure project level, it often was about cost. Yeah. But as you get higher and higher towards the business value, actually people would pay more if they could go faster. Yeah. So obviously we'd all love to take cost out if we can, but this ability to be more responsive, to be more flexible, to be able to deliver faster is actually what people really, really want.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. Exciting time for the information technology. Yeah. And thanks for coming.
No, it's great to talk to you and a pleasure to be here. Thank you.